This video is brought to you by Lord of Maps. More on them before the rating.
The Wheel of Time, episode 6 of a planned 8. This one felt like the beginning of the end to me in several ways, and I'm going to get into why and how I felt so polarized by this episode as we go scene by scene in a deep dive. But don't worry, people who have not read the books, I will keep all theorizing spoiler talk to the very end, and only lightly brush on some book changes that are rather major at the beginning that don't actually spoil anything down the road. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and talk about this 6th episode. This episode started off sweetly enough with us seeing the childhood of Siuan Sanche. She's a fisherman's daughter, and that's very true to the book. And the actress who played young Siuan was adorable. Her father, it was a nice touch having him missing his hand and being a fisherman and struggling, and she's like channeling for him, and that kind of like instant action reward bonding thing just made you immediately kind of love this father-daughter relationship. I'm also a giant sucker for like paternal relationship to pull at my heartstrings, so beware of that bias. But oh no, once they come home, it seems her channeling was spotted, and there is a dragon's fang carved in her door. Been burned to the ground, and her and her dad are not welcome, it seems, because of the prejudice against people who can channel. And a couple nice touches throughout this sequence. The dog's barking while she's channeling for her father. Good touch from the books. I like seeing the usage of dragon's fangs, and the landscape itself actually kind of justified them not seeing the fire at a distance because we had all these jagged, sharp cliffs all around them, so like they wouldn't see the smoke because they're going down this windy-ass river with all this foliage cover. Cool. But then we have Siuan apparently get on her father's boat and just start taking it up the river to Tar Valon, leaving him without a house and boat, which is quite heartbreaking. And I need to learn about the logistics of sailing across a continent as a child. That is quite the endeavor to send her on, sir. Wow. But after we mosey on past a spectacular opening sequence, I still really like the literal kind of representation of the metaphor of the pattern. Neat. We jump on into Logain's trial, and the 3 Aes Sedai who are in charge of his stilling are standing by as he is brought in, still wearing, I might say, some rather nice threads to be tried before the Amyrlin. He says some pretty vicious stuff, I believe pretty directly, to try and instigate her to kill him. I'm not really sure if we can say this is representative of his character because he's trying to bait her into murder. So like what he's saying, I'm not like holding against him. But as he is sentenced to live forever in horrible pain now that he's been gentled psychologically. Seriously, watching him like being dragged out of the room begging for death. Good performance. We shift focus here to Alanna, Moiraine, and Liandrin. And political unfurlings here were handled quite nicely. I liked how we saw Moiraine and Alanna defending Liandrin, and then Liandrin kind of stabbing them in the back. There's nice undercutting and... But this leads me to realizing an inevitable change from the books that I logically know why it has to be there, but I do not necessarily like. Because Liandrin is emoting and reacting, and we're not getting a whole lot of stoicism from the Aes Sedai, and it's a very big deal in the books that there is a serene calm that you have to really know how to look through to see any emotional reaction from Aes Sedai. And this trial does not bring us that. There is gasps and all kinds of stuff. And it makes complete sense because if we're translating to a visual medium, there needs to be like wiggle room for the actors to act. You can't just have everyone being stone-faced towards each other. And I'm not entirely sure how I would change it, but I like the serene calm of the Aes Sedai. It's a very big part of my visualization of them in my head, and I'm having to just more and more interpret that as like a different turning of the pattern, different turn of the wheel, move on. But the end result here in Liandrin stabbing Moiraine in the back is that she must prostrate herself before the Amyrlin as she is lashed by her, turns out, lover. We'll get into that in a second. The dynamics here are interesting because Liandrin has essentially put Siuan in a position where she has to be extra harsh on the blue to rally against the accusation, backhanded accusation from Liandrin that she is giving a more lenient reign to Moiraine due to the fact that she once came from that Aja. And we also see that it's quite upsetting for the blues to see Liandrin defended by some of their own, same with the greens. So it's setting up the political balance within the White Tower. Blues and greens are kind of on this side of the spectrum, reds are over here, and everyone plays in between. They're warring faces, and I know it's 2-on-1, but this Aja's a lot bigger, so power dynamics. And we even get like a Mean Girls hallway scene where Liandrin's like, Moiraine, get whatever your business is here done, because soon you're out. And Moraine's reaction to this is kind of just like, it's this motherfucker. It was kind of funny to me. The audacity! And she kind of actually has an aura of just being like done with people's shit at this point. And it's almost like she goes and takes it out on someone. Lan comes and tells her, hey, I followed Nynaeve, at least that's I assume what he's doing, and I found out where Rand and Mat are. It's in a nearby location. And so her and Lan go to find Rand and Mat. And as Moiraine walks in the room, Rand's like, oh, Nynaeve, you're back.
This is awkward.
Hi, Moiraine. And we know shit's about to go down because before she came in, Moiraine told the innkeeper, don't send help no matter what you hear. And Rand tries to stand up, believing that Mat is a man who can channel between Moiraine, Lan, and Mat, being like, you can't hurt him. He's my friend, please. And Lan's like, kid, I'm Dwayne The Rock Johnson. You're a 5th grader with leukemia. Like, don't try and step to me right now. And he just pins him down to the bed and Rand's out. But we see Mat lunge at Moiraine with the knife. And I thought there was actually a chance we're going to see some damage done with this thing for like a split second, because he has another of those sickly moments. And I really like Barney Harris's performance here. It's quite nice. And I also like the performance from Moiraine with Rosamund Pike as well, because she's coming across, again, like I've kind of said before, just tired of these kids. And as she pulls the knife away and realizes it's from Shadar Logoth, she's like, you stupid motherfucker! You took this from the cursed city, you dumb, just so... And then she begins solo healing Mat and separating him from the knife, which is a rather large change from the books, because what we see in the books is this does not happen yet, and it takes a team of sisters to heal him together. And immediately after being separated from the knife, Mat has a lot of changes to him. So I am confused by this. I don't know if it's Mat's final separation from the knife or what to expect here. All I know is Mat still looks like he's in some rough shape. He doesn't just look better. And this very much so changes how Rand views Moiraine. Because no, Moiraine didn't gentle some man who can channel. Instead, she did something that seemed to cost her dearly to heal Mat. And it looked vile. Oh my god, she pulled something out of his mouth. What's with this show in mouths? Is there a theme of mouth? Why is there a through line of mouth stuff coming up in these episodes? First, it was pushing Madeline Madness and Egwene into water. Now it's mouth things. I don't know why you're doing this to me, Rafe. I feel personally called out. I don't like mouth stuff. It like goes... But Rand goes up to Moiraine and as best as he can kind of tries to tell her thank you, though he never says the words thank you, if I recall correctly. Let me double check. It's literally the first words out of his mouth. I just blanked on that. Well, I'm very skeptical, curious, confused on what I'm perceiving as maybe one of the largest changes we've seen from the books happening so far, especially with the recasting of Barney Harris. I thought that separating from the knife was going to be something totally different, but all right. I did like what it's doing for the characters. And we then see Nynaeve arrive with Loyal, and one of the zingers of all zingers for this show is delivered, where Moiraine goes up and goes, hey, you know how you're called the Town Wisdom, and you saw Mat in that shape? Maybe you should show some wisdom.
Oh, sick burn.
Paraphrasing, but it's along the lines of, you're stupid. And it really worked effectively because Nynaeve, that was pretty stupid. He probably should have got someone involved. He had black stuff in his face. We then get a scene in bathhouses where apparently Moiraine prefers to have her meetings in baths. I get it, you know, relaxing. And the head of the Blue Aja tells her, you have to stay here with me. You have to stay within the tower because you have been gone too long. And this is a big uh-oh for Moiraine because she needs to go off and do her, you know, Moiraine-y things. So a plan must unfold between her lover, the Amerlin seat, and Moiraine. But before that, we also get a quick scene of like, yes, Egwene and Perrin are now in Tar Valon, and Moiraine reacts harshly to the news. His eyes are yellow and Egwene's got the rings. Yay! The scene did just feel a little bit clunky to me. While I like some of the stuff it did do for Egwene, it just felt like, okay, we need to have some stuff happen, so here's it's happening next thing. You know what I mean? It just didn't have that nice natural flow I really wanted for the story. But then we get my favorite, I would argue, not change from the books, where Lan comes in and he goes, hey, you've hid your bond from me. Why? And Moiraine says, I thought you'd be excited. And he goes like, have fun getting laid. Except he didn't say that, but that's what he's saying, because we see Moiraine uses a Angreal that actually shows us our first look at a gateway, it seems, that opens directly into Siuan Sanche's room. Oh, damn!
Pips wants to say hi, but I also wanted to praise the show on two beats here. Having this subtle actually informing us an AI Sedai can mask a bond from a warder so they don't feel each other as much. It was done really well here. It was explained and understood just by the context of what Moiraine's doing, what happens afterward, and Lan's concerned. So that was smooth, and I praise it. And secondly, I also feel a similar level of world building has been done with the idea of Tirangreal. We now know these things exist, and they do all kinds of different stuff. We haven't really differentiated between Tirangreal, Sangreal, and yet, but I assume that'll happen down the road. But yeah, just appreciating writing that doesn't feel clunky setting up these things.
So I guess when she was looking at it the last episode, there's like some kind of thing you can change between them to be like, hey, I'm available, you available, and then you can come on through. And now it says like, hey, I'm available, so she's going to see her boo. And the chemistry between them was nice, and the books they're described as pillow friends and heavily hinted at to be lovers. So I approve of what I consider to be coded gay characters from Robert Jordan just being made to be gay. Cool. In publishing at the time, it was very hard to get gay characters in books, so Robert Jordan had to be like, they were pillow friends. And in here they can be like, no, they're gay! And we get a callback because earlier the Amerlin said kneel, and now Moraine's like, kneel to me.
Well, that's hot.
But this rapidly turns into one of my least favorite changes or implications from the books, because we've long known as fans, the ending of The Eye of the World in the book is widely considered messy. When you're first reading it, it can come across kind of chaotic, but fine, but in the hindsight of finishing the series, especially on rereads, the ending of The Eye of the World's kind of like, okay? And we've had our first sign to me personally that they're going to do something radically different, because Siuan Sanche is now saying she's having dreams that show the Dark One is very vulnerable, and it could be to their benefit to send the dragon there now and see if they could defeat the Dark One. And I can see, if you're not a book fan, that could be like, okay, yeah. And as a book fan, I'm justifying in my head as she's seeing these visions in her dreams, they're telling her strange stuff. Maybe she thinks yeeting the dragon at the Dark One is a good idea. They're going to need to explain this a lot, because I'm not on board with this theory idea at all. And I'm very curious to see what book fans think of it compared to show fans, because I think it's going to be a really radical, polarizing thing.
And I want to be clear that the ending and the justification for going to the Blight in the Eye of the World in the book is also just kind of wonky, and I've never been a huge fan of it. So I'm not saying on face value like this is a bad change to make, but it just makes me ask a lot of questions. Like, there's these really long, complex prophecies that the dragon must do. You speak on them. Granted, yes, you do justify that a lot of them have been changed and varied and translated again and again and again and again. So there's stuff to wiggle in. But this is you going, okay, screw all of that. Let's just throw a party where we think the dragon's in there at the Dark One and see what happens. It's like, that's kind of a rush.
There's also a wonderful scene where Liandrin tries to like lord over Moiraine what she's had done here, and like flex how effective her eyes are, being like, oh, you have Egwene and Perrin with some yellows being healed, and Mat Cauthon, that's his name, right? And Moiraine turns around and pulls off like the White Tower equivalent of like when Drake was in that beef with the rapper, and Drake was like, you're kind of phony. And that guy was like, I know you're hiding a child. Because Moiraine turns around on Liandrin. Hey, I know that you're going to meet a guy, and you're a red sister. What do you think your red sisters will do if they hear you're meeting up with a guy? Huh? You think they'll react well to that? You piece of shit. It was like a mic drop moment. And we also see that Moiraine is plotting with Loyal. And again, the costuming of Loyal driving me nuts. The performance, so good. Like, it's this corny, wholesome just being here, and with the tone of the show, I'm fine with that. But we also see Egwene has been brought on in to the Hall of the Tower, and she's like, is this the throne of the Amerlin's seat? And that's called the Amerlin's seat. Isn't it weird to have the throne be... Yes, it is. You're absolutely right. It is weird to have the throne named the same thing as the position. Just putting that out there. And Nynaeve is brought in, so they get to have a reunion. And as Nynaeve is brought in, she's saying something very Nynaeve-y. I can't remember what it is, but Ha, she's flirting with Lan. And so we get a reunion and they're hug. Oh, you're alive. I love you, boo. And Moraine's like, you're gonna meet the Amerlin. She summoned you all. And they're like, she'll have to wait. And Moiraine says, the Amerlin waits for only one woman and it's not you. And with the scene we just saw, we're like, guys, we know who it is because sex. They have a meeting with the Amerlin seat where Nynaeve is super naive and not respecting authority. Egwene is a little more reserved and showing some leaning towards being on the Amerlin side, both in line with who they are. And there's a nice couple actual, like if you pay attention, dynamics displayed between Moiraine and Siuan that I really enjoyed. There's one line where Nynaeve says something like, don't speak like you know me. And that's a line I feel like a lot of people are gonna put in the quotes with the face and do like the font that's really like over the top and be like, yeah, that's me. I'm gonna put that on my Instagram. To transition us between this and the actual trial scene, we get a trailer shot with Moiraine standing on a balcony, and I don't mean trailer shot in like a demeaning way. I just mean like, yes, there was a beautiful shot that clearly if you didn't put in the trailer, you're dumb. That's something that should go in the trailer. And at the sentencing of Moiraine, she is expelled from the tower in a moment I liked until it totally crashed for me. So I really enjoy the double back planning that we're seeing between these two. It feels appropriate, and the performances up to this point are great. But then we get this addition where Siuan Sanche goes, you will now swear on the oath rod. You'll obey your banishment. And as a book fan, I'm kind of left going, huh? Because Aes Sedai cannot lie, and so she doesn't need to actually take another oath. All she'd have to say before the Amerlin, and mean it, is I will obey your sentencing and not come back until blah, 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 blah. And it just felt like, to me, we need to put in how the oath rod works here. So we're gonna do this now. And if I was Aes Sedai watching this, it would seem over the top and like showmanship. And they even put this thing like, until the mother calls me back, which if I was an Aes Sedai watching, I'd be like, so this banishment means very little because you could just bring her back whenever you feel like it. And if you guys are colluding, it means she can just go do the mission she wants until, you guys are definitely colluding. Like, I don't expect her to do this like oath of you're gone forever, but it's like the added layer of the oath rod just felt unnecessary. And then we get this very dramatic, everyone turning their back on Moiraine as she leaves, which it just looked weird. Wasn't the biggest fan. It just looked weird. That's all I can say. But Moraine's plans unfurl as throughout this episode she has been meeting with people and saying we're going to be getting together out there. Then she is met by Loyal, Egwene, Perrin, Rand, Lan. They're all together. Emond's Field 5 are back together with Moiraine and Land and Loyal. Book. And they're going into the ways. So in a lot of ways, we are actually where the book should be. We just went a very circumvent route to get here. And some questions are asked, like, you still don't know who the dragon is. Moiraine says, no, but we have to take you to fight the Dark One while he is weak, which again is something that I'm like, is this your plan? You seem a little smarter than that. But in her defense, without getting to spoilers, some things she says are realities within the books, so all right. And when the party asks what'll happen to those of us who are not the dragon, Moiraine takes a very long pause, tries to say something, and we watch the trio stop her because she can't lie. And she has to essentially say something that is so transparently her trying to avoid saying you're all going to probably die that the whole party can see absolutely right through it. And a very awkward silence falls over the group. They're all like, oh, poo-poo, just bad. We're all bad. And they've made a change to the waygates. Now Moiraine goes up to it and opens with channeling. In the books, you just like remove a leaf key and that's what opens it. So whatever, changed, not a big deal to me. And the party moves on into the ways, and Moiraine says like it's far too late to turn back now. The world depends on what we're doing. Let's go. And for those of you who do not follow the news of the show, the actor who plays Mat, Barney Harris, had to suddenly leave during shooting, and it becomes very apparent when that happened, because in a rather strangely edited sequence, everyone goes through the gateway except Mat. Apparently no one, including Lan, noticed he wasn't following the party, and the gateway slowly closes as everyone goes, Mat, you're not, he's not through, Mat's not through, guys, Mat's not through, Mat's over, Mat, he's not over there, Mat, he's not it, Mat, do you want to get in here, buddy? And it's awkward, and if you know the news of the show, to me, it's pretty obvious what's happening here. Dragonmount has even posted on Twitter that apparently this was the episode Barney left either during or after filming, so it would make sense that this is the opportunity they would take of just being like, well,
cut him when we can out, because you gotta manage the script without that character for a year.
Even see like a reaction shot of Barney Harris, and he's not really doing much aside from just standing there. It looks like they just grabbed a shot they had of him and put him in as a reaction shot for what they're all yelling at him for. But I can't really fault the show for this. And for what happened to the production, pretty much a nightmare scenario where one of your star actors just dips, I really couldn't think of a better way to handle it.
I didn't mean to imply Barney Harris just dipped. The guy deleted his entire social media and has essentially vanished. I hope he's okay, and I didn't mean to diminish in any way, shape, or form whatever happened to make him break contract.
And it makes me wonder how much of what we've already seen has had to be tweaked to actually justify what we've seen here. It's just really unfortunate this happened, and I feel bad for the production, but I can't think of a better way to handle it. Although I have to bring up some of the contradictions it inevitably leaves within the script. We just saw Moiraine say, I would actually kill everyone here instead of letting the Dark One take them, but she's just letting Mat go when he's clearly not of the right state of mind, and you just said yourself, heavily steeped in darkness, so you think she would have done something to stop that, but she didn't. And she had also just said, the fate of the world depends on us guaranteed getting the dragon to the Dark One. She believes this, and even if there was a 0.0001% chance the dragon was Mat, you might want to grab him. So while I have to bring up those now issues I have with the script, inevitably it's just going to be something that I can't fault being there. Now, for those of you who stick around for a rating, this episode, I again really like the performances I'm seeing. I think the set design was actually quite impressive, and the momentum was there, but in terms of some just now plot issues and finally some changes from the books that I'm just going "Ugh," on, and a clumsy use of the oath rod, I'm taking some issue here. Before we finish out, a quick word from today's sponsor, Lord of Maps.
Hey kid, you like maps? I got a pretty good sneaking suspicion you do, because you're a fantasy nerd just like me. And if there's one thing I know about fantasy fans, it's that we love our big old mappy boys. And that's why Lord of Maps is here to save the day. Lord of Maps is a new startup company that's kind of underground, coming up within the fantasy landscape. That's not some big corporate conglomerate. It's run by these dorks. Look at them, they're charming. And what they provide is one of those ideas where you're like, fuck, I really wish I had thought of that first. And it's these style maps in any little landscape you could dream of. Granted, they don't have the entire Earth. Well, they do literally have the entire Earth, but not like every little tiny zoomed in map provides but you know what I'm saying. And if you're looking to decorate your house with something that's gonna look a little classy, but also provide an insight into your inner throbbing, rock hard nerd, this is probably a fantastic way to go. And look, you're getting this discount if you just use the code provided. Aha! So if you, like me, love maps and want to see perhaps your home state, country, or even the whole world drawn onto your wall to display for the world with landmarks included, go ahead and check out Lord of Maps today in the description down below.
Daniel, why have you stopped putting your microphone on blades? I'm going to rate this one a very strong 6.5. I always kind of want that caveat of like, hey, the ending could justify a lot of things back here, so in hindsight, once you get the full story, cool. It's like trying to rate a book based off chapters as you go through it. It's not really the best when you can't say how well stuff's gonna pay off. Yeah, for me, this is about a 6.5 right now. Wow, that could have been the last of Barney Harris's Mat we see. Oof. But let me know what you think of this episode in the comments down below, and if you have read the book, stick around for theory and spoiler talk. That will be beginning in 3, 2, 1, now. So Mat's gone, and the way he was healed was not very reflective of what was in the books, but they've now made it he was partially healed from the knife. It's going to turn out he was not entirely healed from it, and then when we get the full healing that does all the stuff from the books to him, it will be much more reflective, and that's where we'll have the new casting and all the ramifications of what happens to Mat. Whether or not they're going to use the new actor throughout that whole sequence or only after he has been changed somehow, I don't know how. Maybe pick up Barney Harris for like quick shoots. I genuinely have no idea how you handle that. If I was in charge of this production, that is a nightmare. But then we will see something more reflective of the book itself. And Liandrin, super dark friend, definitely a member of the Black Aja, and I think the man Moiraine suspects she's sleeping with is actually a Forsaken. That's going to be one of our introductions to a Forsaken. It's going to be who she gets her orders from, and explain something that's been brought up a couple different times throughout the season now. How did the Trollocs get through the gateways? If they need a channeler, who would be doing it? Well, who do we know was also out and about, mobile, while Moiraine was scavenging for the Dragon Reborn? Liandrin. I suspect she let them in. Could also be a Forsaken. Not ruling that out either. I had a dread in my stomach that they were somehow going to rewrite this episode that Moiraine and Siuan were actually enemies, and that's where they're going to take the books. So seeing that no, they actually were laying out a long con that's been in the works for 2 years was really a great moment, and I enjoy the realization of those characters in a way that feels like it's updating it and condensing it for the show, but staying true to what is important there to people who very much so, whether it's you're going to read it as friends, and if you're going for the books and rejecting the idea of gay-coded characters, or lovers, it feels true to who they are and their chemistry's there. And Siuan, oh my god, speaking of casting, that woman is nailing Siuan Sanche vibes to me. She is actually getting nose-to-nose with Nynaeve already in a way that's reflective of their relationship, while we're seeing a completely different introduction of the Amyrlin. Not introduced this way at all in the books, and it's safe to say we are definitely not getting Caemlyn this season. I know everyone's already come to that conclusion, but from this Waygate, we're going to go to the Borderlands, like we've seen that in trailers. We're going to end up in the Borderlands with 2 episodes left. That's where we're going. And I expect we're going to see 2 very action-packed episodes. I'm excited to see where it's going to go. And while this episode obviously had big hurdles it was trying to leap, I don't think it fell flat on its face, though it is probably in my lowest tier of episodes yet. Although apparently I've had a very consistently unpopular opinion as opposed to most fans. Some of the ones I hold up the highest, others are putting low. Some of the ones I put low, people are putting up high. It's all subjective, and I'm just enjoying the conversation. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.